777.
Examine carefully power which you ceded to the Shills, that you haven't powers of the Council of Ministers by comparing it to the British Cabinet, powers of the Council of Ministers by comparing it to the British Cabinet. Carefully, what is to the British Cabinet, to the British Cabinet, to the British Cabinet, to the British Cabinet, powers of the Council of Ministers by comparing it to the British Cabinet, to the Council of Ministers by comparing it to the British Cabinet. It reveals that you haven't examined carefully what is the power which you ceded to the Council of Ministers when we went into the market. The Council of Ministers happens to be the most important of these institutions, not a democratic body, and not a body making laws by the method that we think laws should be made in this country. We think in this country that a cabinet should make recommendations to the House of Commons, and the House of Commons, which is the elected body, should have the power not only to decide yes or no, but also to examine those particular laws, to amend them, to change them. That's how we think laws should be made in this country, and quite right too.
And so individually we're all going to see the result. Now, as a nation...
It's all going to be harder for us.
Yes, and I've said this absolutely clearly to the whole nation in every speech I've made. And as far as the import bill is concerned, what does that mean? Well, we had an expanding economy. We did this because we agreed with the unions and the employers. It's what the country wanted. And we all look forward to this improving the standard of living of our people. But
do you think that the climate has been made better?
I don't think you'll have found them criticising me during this election campaign either, because of all the hours we've spent together at Chequers and Number 10 over these last 21 months. There are things on which we didn't find ourselves in agreement. On the other hand, we agreed over quite a wide field. We agreed on our objectives of expanding the economy, of helping the lower paid, of helping the pensioners. And we've been able to do all of those things. What I am trying to achieve is that the moderate people in this country should stand up and be counted. And I believe we're getting the response in this respect. Of course, you get to a position in the national life where political considerations tend to outweigh other considerations. And after an election, that is not the case. After this election, they will see that democracy has spoken and that this country wants cooperation. I believe it wants it desperately. It wants a national approach. And I believe that we should be able to achieve this. What I am saying is that we face a very serious situation for these reasons. And this means that we want full production. There are those who say you should stop expansion, but what's the point of that? We want to expand our production and sell it abroad. We are competitive on prices anywhere in the world. Every industrialist tells me this. They've told me in the campaign going around the country. What we've got to get is the production. And then we do not exclude anything. We will do what is necessary in the national interest. But a budget has all sorts of aspects. It has, first of all, the aspect of encouragement to people, incentive to people to get on with the job. Of course, it also has different aspects about consumption in a country and so on. What the Chancellor will have to weigh up is the production after the 3-day week, what the production is going to be in future, the degree going to our exports and so on. All of these things have got to be taken into account in the budget. What we have said is that whatever is required for the nation, we will do it. They have the policy, they have the code, they can see what the purpose of it is. And now they are dealing with the relative position of different groups in industry. Perhaps I could explain this a little more. When the pay board was set up in March of last year, we said to them, look, problems have obviously arisen because of the standstill, the freeze, and also stage 2. And the reason is that it came about in the middle of a negotiating year, and some people have been caught by a date, some haven't, and so on. And so will you examine all of this and recommend to us how to deal with it? Asked for the anomalies report, as it's called, by September, and it was produced for us by the middle of September. And as a result, not everybody was satisfied. Some thought they ought to have been included, like the postman who came to see me, and they weren't. But we have, as a result of that report, sorted out some 90% of the anomalies which were created, and we've done it peaceably without industrial action.
To the observer, there appear to be two distinct Tory themes, campaigns in this election. There is the One Nation theme, so eloquently expressed by yourself last night, and then there is what almost appears to be the deliberately divisive campaign, which was perhaps emphasised in Mr. Barber's election broadcast the other night. Which one are we to believe?
There is only one campaign, and it is the campaign for One Nation. Unless you are going for an egalitarian society, in which by compulsion nobody is paid more than anybody else, then of course those who are carrying great responsibilities will in fact be paid higher salaries. What this campaign is about is standing firm on an incomes policy which Parliament has approved, including the anomalies report, including the approach on relativities, and the country wants to show that it wants these matters handled in a parliamentary fashion instead of using industrial strength. I'm absolutely clear about this, and so is the country.
Right, a little bit of knowledge is now on the pedo psyops, right? There's a lot of pedo psyop now on YouTube and that. A lot of pedo stuff, right? And it was interesting that Michelle X was doing a pedo video and all this. It was like something about Ruth Bader Ginsburg or something was wanting the legal age of sex or whatever put down to 12, right? So you're 12 is you're 21 or you're 777 straight away, right? So they're ridiculous hoax and that. But like the purpose behind these pedo psyops, right, is to create like repellent ideas and that, see? Like this is to create like to further the gap between like those who are in the like Royal Masonic Society, right, and the sort of the normals, the naturals and that, right, who are outside it, and just to further the gap in ideas, in understanding and comprehension of reality and that. See what I mean? And they use like these repellent ideas, see, like things which is, you know, there's nothing more repellent than the idea of a pedo and all that. You see what I mean? So use these repellent ideas to the distance, to put the distance the same. It's similar to David Icke and that. I've seen one about David Icke. And he's doing the same stuff like the elite pedo networks and all this, right? Again, it's a hoax. I mean, we can't really be for sure what they get up to in their private lives and that, but we can be sure that this stuff they're releasing and that is pure hoax and that. Right, so you've got the David Icke, and he's on about the elite pedo network, so they keep using this idea of the elite, which like El is your word for God. Remember, like the Hebrew stuff and that, El is your word for God, right? So it's like this elite idea is like the sort of suggestive of like the like an elite stratosphere, like a different level altogether and all this, see? Like the word flight and that, like a top flight, see? Like this idea of like something which is so far above and that is to be like, you know, completely removed and that, you see what I mean? And this is why they're doing this stuff to reinforce this idea, to build a gap, see? Because ultimately I would say what the ultimate aim is to create like a total gap in the society, right? So you've got basically the naturals are reduced to the levels of like scavengers type idea. And if you was like watching the 1980s stuff, they had a lot of this mutant stuff and like post-nuclear apocalypse movies and that, you know, like video nasties and all, what have you. And it was like there was a common theme in them all made by tea drinker people and that, see what I mean? The movie makers and that. And there was this common theme of this idea of like this after the nuclear apocalypse and all that. Like apocalypse is obviously apocrypha or whatever, which is like the Greek word for the revelations and that. You know what I mean? It's to do with knowledge and that, revelations and that. But there was like this idea of this nuclear holocaust thing, and then you had a society which was full of mutants and scavengers, and they were walking around in rags with like boils all over, and you know what I mean, that type of idea, and that's it. And that's basically what I think what they're trying to sort of produce in the sort of in the system. See what I mean? Make a massive gap between those who have, which is like your Royal Masons and that, and those who have not. So they're creating like economic poverty, obviously, through the different ways, right? And an opera fact, you already get like a scavenger mentality in like certain areas and that, you know what I mean? Like poorer districts and that. People are taking the like going through the back alleys of the richer houses and that, looking for like the cast-offs and that, you know what I mean? Stop the chuck away and what have you, right? And this is like further exacerbated by the stuff on the television, where you basically get these like these tea drinker people and that, and they're sort of going on about recycling and doing up world stuff and all that. Of course, like a normal person hasn't got access to the type of equipment what they can do to things, you know what I mean? You're talking about having access to like the old garbage and that. But like, you see what I mean? They're trying to create this idea, this massive gap and sort of a distance between the two levels of people, see? Your tea drinkers and that, and your natural born people, see? So I've seen this thing about Michelle X and that, and she's trying to say like, that they're doing pedo stuff and all this, which is basically a nonsense, like, and that brings us to the word nonce. See, like a nonce is a pedo and that. And of course, like nonce, it's based on the idea of a nonsense. See, it's a nonsense. Used to have like a posh poet or something called Edward Lear, and used to do his nonsense poems or something. See what I mean? It's based on that. And it's like subtly, see the subtle craft of put this idea into the minds of people and that over the years, and that the idea of the nonce and the pedo. And you see this only affects like against the naturals, because natural creates a paranoia and a sort of fear, you know what I mean? We all know like the idea of like, oh, that old bloke and that he's a pedo and that, you know what I mean? Of course, just be some old bloke or whatever, do you know what I mean? And it's like it operates like against the natural populace. See what I'm saying? And this is what they're trying to do. See, they use like a repellent idea. See, like something that repels and that, like, to mask the sort of true stuff. See what I mean? There's nothing more repellent than the idea of a pedo. See what I mean? It's this is what they're trying to do. And of course, pedo, like if you anagram it, and that's like dopey. You see what I mean? That brings me to the idea of dozy, right? Dozy, which is like yesod in the Kabbalistic ideas, and that the yesod. See, yesod being like I'd say probably the same as Jesus, and that. You see what I mean? In that Kabbalistic, it's like no, and the one above it, and that the number 8 thing is hod. See, hod. Like you got a hod carrier and a bricklayer, you see. So it's all like a lot of this stuff is all to do with these wall builders and that. See, building the invisible wall, and they're strengthening it, and they're, you know what I mean, creating this gap and this distance between the two levels of stratospheres. See, the idea of the stratospheres comes in because you've got the elite. This idea of the elite in that, you see what I mean? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you know what I mean? Peoples are just people type of thing. See what I mean? But these want to make this differences. See, they expand upon the differences and highlighting the differences to make, to enlarge the gap in that. See what I'm saying?